With all of the updates, the breaking news, what does this mean? If you could distill it all down, what are the main takeaways that a seller, us, need to know, and we need to follow the rules? Like, what does it mean? If you could give us a recap, so this way here, we know exactly what it means and also how it's going to either benefit us or it's going to affect us moving forward.
Absolutely. So, Scott, Etsy dropped a bomb this week when they came out and they said, hey, we're making a bunch of changes to the terms of service. We're going to be changing a lot of things. And not only are we changing a lot of things, they're effective today, right? So they're already rolling out. And the first big thing is that instead of it just being handmade, vintage, or supplies, they now have a new category structure. And just like before, you didn't really pick the category that you fall into. They're going to assign you to one of 4 new categories based on whether or not you created the entire product or you just created parts of the product, or if you're just sourcing a raw ingredient. And so what they're going to ask you during that listing creation process are the same questions that they asked in the past, but they're also going to be including a few new questions depending on what your answers are. And so what they're looking for is, did you create the product? Did you design the product? Did you create a collection, or did you select the product? And go from there. And so essentially what we're looking at is, did you make it? How much did you make of it? And then, is it something that somebody would be able to find elsewhere, right? So is it print on demand? That will fall in one category. Is it custom? That will fall in another category. Or is it truly handmade? They're getting rid of those labels entirely and moving forward with the new category system. The second big thing was a little bit of vindication for us here at the Brand Creators channel, where they changed the image policy and made it almost as clear and readable as a company like Etsy can do. They rolled out that new image policy and they clarified that mockups are usable in a few circumstances. So if you are creating the finished product, you need to use a final photo of the product. If your production partner is creating a product from scratch, so they're assembling a piece of furniture, you also need to use a real image for that as well. If you're using a traditional print on demand product, so we design this awesome dancing avocado mug, we can use a mock-up for that. And if we're using customization or personalization, they want us to use either a real photo or a mock-up that represents the final look of the product. They also wanted to make it very clear that they don't want any mock-ups being used, and they applied it to the personalized side of things, but it would apply, I guess, to the traditional print on demand, although I'm not sure how you would do that, that have placeholder text in them. So they don't want you to create this beautiful dancing avocado mug and then show the back of it and have it just say your name or your text here. It needs to truly represent the product that the customer will be holding in their hands. You can still, based on the reading of this, still use those as the supporting images if you really want to, but if you're swapping out that first image anyway and people get an idea of what that's looking like, I don't know why you would need to do that. The third big thing is that they clarified their stance on AI, and they basically said, as long as you're disclosing that you're using it, you can use it to create any part of a product or the entire product, as long as that product is creative in some way. So they don't want you selling prompts, they don't want you selling bundles of prompts, and they don't want you selling anything, obviously, that would otherwise violate their guidelines, like adult content. Other than that, if you're using it to create the entire product, to aid you in design, perfectly okay to use AI inside of the Etsy ecosystem, as long as you're indicating that during the product creation process.
Okay, so a lot that we covered there. We have a bunch of questions.
Sheila said, if I buy a design from a Fiverr creator, then I own the rights to it. That would be a contract where I hire them. If they're designing it for you, right, that is a unique design. If you are taking a pre-made design and selling that as your own product, that is not allowed in their terms of service. Beardo Gaming said, what about tarot reading and I sell it physically? They have a whole separate section on like service type stuff. And I don't think that was impacted by this. So whatever the rules were for that before should still apply. If you see anything differently, let me know. Not an area that we dive too much into, but I know they have a very specific section for like services around tarot, which seems like a weirdly specific thing for them to have rules about, but they do. What about 3D printing? So you are creating that finished product, right? Just because you're using a printer to help you with that doesn't mean you're not creating the finished product. When you go in to indicate what you use to help that, I even think, and I'd have to go back and look at the little PDF that I put together, 3D printing might be mentioned as one of the computer automated tools that they had for people. So let me pull that up really fast here and see. computerized tools, laser printers, 3D printers, right? So you would apply, you just check that little box and say, I use a
Computerized
3D
tools
printer
and
to
machines. Yeah.
Yep. I assembled it from scratch, or I made it from scratch, and I used a 3D printer to help me with that. Jacqueline said, what do we put digital downloads under? The digital option. So the very first option that you select there is physical or digital. You just pick digital, and it will show you the options that we showed, where it's like, I designed the entire thing myself, I used AI to help, or I put it together from other things. Beardo says, wait, so for tarot, do you put it as a physical product? You made it ready to order, made to order, right? And Dream Talking with Vicky said, I show an image of the spread, and then they have the questions that they can do. And I think that is the rules around that. I'm not sure exactly how you would set that up. I'm assuming you are the person making the product, because it's a unique thing each time.
Yeah.
And I believe the rules around that are that you have to include something tangible along with it. So it would be like a photo, like Vicky was talking about, or like a recording of you doing the psychic reading or the tarot reading along with that. So they get something physical to take with them. What about handmade sellers that use mock-ups for t-shirts or prints? If it is a handmade product, you cannot use a mock-up. The only time you can use a mock-up is if you're using a production partner. They're very clear about that. They got rid of a lot of the fluff, and they left that one line of confusion. But the one thing they were very clear about is the handmade products need to have a real photo. What about images generated by AI that Etsy stores are selling to be resold as is, like private label rights articles that seem to appear every other day? I guess these can't be sold anymore. If they created them, you can create bundles of those things and sell those. You cannot sell bundles of the prompts that they use to create those.